Recently, it has come to light that potentially Jon Jones will be fighting Sergei Pavlovich in Australia at UFC 293 in September. Now, there is a little bit of a problem for that. The main source for this is Chael Sonnen. Now, Chael Sonnen, I mean, he seems to come up with a lot of things that happen, but he seems to come up with a lot of things that don't happen, and more often than not, something that Chael Sonnen says is going to happen doesn't happen. And there's kind of like a lot of very interesting sort of reasons that this could happen. I mean, Sergei Pavlovich has 110% earned a title shot. No doubt in my mind he's gone on an absolute run recently, and I think the win over Curtis Blaydes really has secured him that title shot. He probably should be fighting for the title next, but Stipe Miocic, what are we going to do with him? What are we going to do with Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic? And that's one of the many reasons that this is an interesting fight. Like, this is a weird fight to make because, I mean, Sergei Pavlovich is the number one contender, but Jones has always been on Stipe. As soon as he beat Cyril Gane, he was looking at Stipe. I mean, before he even fought Cyril Gane, he was looking at Stipe. And then there's word of Jon Jones fighting Stipe and then retiring, and then there's words of Jon Jones fighting Stipe in July. That obviously didn't happen. That didn't happen for UFC 290. What's going on? Like, what's happening on the Stipe side? You know, even then, Jon Jones and Stipe were meant to fight in, like, December of last year, were they not? Am I correct? I feel like that was sort of brought up, you know? So where is Stipe Miocic in this conversation? Is he injured? Is he not wanting to fight? Is he wanting too much money? Is he having a contract issue? Like, is there something gone wrong with his contract? Is there something gone wrong maybe just outside of fighting? Where is Stipe Miocic? Why is Stipe Miocic not fighting Jon Jones? I mean, to my knowledge, it seems like Jon Jones is ready, but even then, Dana White did come out recently and say after Jon Jones beat Cyril Gane, Dana White couldn't get a hold of Jon Jones. He couldn't talk to Jon Jones, so Jon Jones went into hiding for maybe a couple of weeks. Like, what is happening with Jon Jones right now? What is happening with the heavyweight division? What is happening with the titles at the heavyweight division? And then another reason what this makes this so odd is the location of the fight. Now, I would personally absolutely love UFC 293 to be headlined by Jon Jones and Sergei Pavlovich because I'm going to be in attendance. I'm going to be going to Sydney. I'm going to be going to that event. I would absolutely love for it. But why would you put Jon Jones in Australia? Does he just want to fight in Australia? Is Australia like this new like booming market for fight fans all of a sudden? Because Tyson Fury is apparently rumored to be fighting in Australia as well. So they're really trying to potentially boost the Australian market in MMA and combat sports, which I'm all for. I think it makes sense. But you don't need Jon Jones to headline a card in Australia. And the reason why I say that is from first-hand experience, I can tell you guys that UFC 284, the whole arena, about what, like 12,000, 14,000 tickets, sold out in 40 minutes. They sold out in 40 minutes. I could not get tickets. I was at work at the time. By the time I got home, it was 40 minutes into the sale time, and I opened up my laptop. The first thing I saw was sold out. You can't buy any more. The tickets sold out in 40 minutes. It was an absolute mess. It was an absolute mess of a situation, but yeah, I'm telling you, they don't need Jon Jones to sell out an arena. Jon Jones, the UFC itself could put any old card in Australia and they'd sell out an arena in there. That's how much the fight fans in Australia wants to watch the UFC. You don't need Jones to headline this big card. Would I love it to happen? Absolutely, but you don't need him. You don't need him to headline it. And even then, Sergei Pavlovich as well. You know, big draw, obviously very well-known fighter at this point, just knocked out Tai Tuivasa. I mean, does he need to headline a card in Australia? Like, I feel like maybe, like, Jon Jones versus Pavlovich just in some card in the USA would just make more sense, would it not? But I'm not opposed to it, but I do think the location is odd. I think the fight is a little bit odd as well, because where's Stipe? Where is Stipe in this situation? Like, what are we doing with Stipe Miocic? But then again, it did get me thinking about why this fight could make sense. Jon Jones versus Sergei Pavlovich at UFC 293 could be a good idea, and I'm not actually really super opposed to the idea because I'm going to be in attendance. I'd absolutely love for it to happen, and also I think Sergei Pavlovich is the deserving number one contender. But aside from that as well, Tai Tuivasa is from Sydney, and he is 110% going to be on that card. Now, Tai Tuivasa, he's on a losing streak right now, but his opponent could potentially be a fighter on a winning streak, and that opponent that he fights could be like the short notice replacement or the guy that's going to be fighting in as the weigh-in backup for the title shot. Would they want to jeopardize a potential Tai Tuivasa fight in Sydney for that? Probably not, but I was also thinking, like, if worst comes to worst, the fighter in the Tai Tuivasa versus whoever matchup could end up stepping in for the main event. Jones versus Pavlovich, all of a sudden becomes Jones versus Tuivasa, or Jones versus, I don't know, like Aspinall, Jones versus Miocic, maybe do Stipe Miocic versus Tai Tuivasa, who knows, or Sergei Pavlovich versus Tuivasa again, or you guys know what I mean. You could potentially have the backup option there, because Tai Tuivasa will be fighting 110% on that card in Sydney. That's his hometown. I mean, drink West, Western Sydney. He's got like from the area tattooed on his lip, like from the area, from Western Sydney. Like, dude, like, Tai Tuivasa's on the card. There's no argument about that. There's nothing to be said. Tai Tuivasa will be fighting on that Sydney card at UFC 293, absolutely no doubt. His opponent, or him potentially, I don't know. He could get a title shot out of absolutely nowhere. Who knows, man? Who knows? But I just find it very interesting that Jones versus Pavlovich in Australia. It's just odd, isn't it? It's just weird. It is weird. But I don't understand what's going on with the Stipe Miocic negotiations, because I mean, what this infers is that Jon Jones is ready to go, right? Jon Jones is the fighter out of the Miocic and Jones fight that's ready to get a fight booked. So it sounds like Jones is ready to go. But also, Dana White has come ahead and said in the past that he has been struggling to talk to Jones. So I don't know what's going on there. It's also worth noting, oh, what a source. Sonnen told the Thick Boy. I think that's the podcast. I think it's a podcast, Thick Boy podcast. So Sonnen told Thick Boy, which is I don't even know his name. The comedian fighter. I think he beat Pat Barry, didn't he? Was it the other way around? Brendan Schwab. Brendan Schwab's podcast, I think, is Thick Boy Promotions or Thick Boy Podcast. What? I don't know. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Sorry, guys. I had to take a few minutes to process it. Jones versus Pavlovich in Australia. It doesn't make sense. I'm all for it, though. I would absolutely love it to happen. I mean, there's reasons why it could happen. There's reasons why it couldn't. What's going on with Stipe Miocic? If you made it this far in the video and you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't liked the video, please do. And if you haven't commented, please leave a comment. I try to reply to every comment. For some reason, YouTube doesn't actually give me all of the notifications for comments, even though I don't get that many of them, but that's why I sometimes miss them. But anyway, I will see you guys in the next one.